All right, I got a new video out, and you know that means I'm going to take you through exactly how I made it from start to finish. If you have any questions at all, if there's anything that I missed, just let me know. I'm more than happy to help. My goal with these is always just to educate as many people as possible and show them that if I can do it, so can they. Today's video is for the song Anchor from the band Without a Crown. There's a lot of cool little detail work in here, and I'm really excited to take you through all of it. To start off with the full band setups, I basically just had one key light on the left-hand side, which is just a giant 8x8 of diffusion, and then I'm punching a lot of light through there, and that's kind of lighting up most of the room and acting as their key light at the same time. By itself, it was the exact quality of light that I wanted, and it added a nice kind of ambience to the room. But I did need to sweeten it up a little bit. So the guitarist on the back left here actually has a falconized light mat, the same one I'm using to light this video, with a grid on it, just to kind of add a little bit more and highlight him more. That 8x8 was mostly serving the vocalist and a bit of the room, so just having that little bit extra helped out the guys in the back, both that guitarist and the bass player a little bit as well. Then around the right side, I do have one Astera tube just set to daylight balance, and that's just giving that guitarist on the right a little bit more fill as well, making sure he's not getting too dark. The main light punching through that diffusion is an aperture. It's either the 120D or the 300D, I can't recall off the top of my head. And then we just added a little bit of extra punch with another Astera tube back there, and just a couple extra bulb fixtures I had lying around, which only added like a 15% difference to what the aperture was already doing, but it just let me keep my ISO that much lower and have a cleaner image. Because I wanted to shoot wide, I can't really get a good light back there for the drummer, so I pretty much just left it and didn't worry about it. And then when I go in for the close-up, then I bring that light in closer for him. It's the kind of thing that when it comes to a continuity standpoint with music videos, people don't really care. It's not something that you're really focused on anyway, so it's okay to kind of cheat the continuity a bit if it ends up giving you a better image at the end. With the wides, I'm using the camera on my Ronin S gimbal, and I've got the Sigma 18-35, and that's just on 18 for all of the wide sweeping shots. For all the individual kind of medium shots of each musician here, that's all closer to 35 with that same lens, and that's all handheld. The last type of shot I did with this setup was some locked off shots. I was just shooting on a tripod with a wide angle, so same thing, it's with that Sigma 18-35, probably about 21 to 24. Those are just in the intro of the video, and they just help accentuate and punctuate their writing, which was these really, really chill, intimate sections immediately punctuated by these loud, full sections with the whole band going really hard. So I just wanted to accentuate that a little bit by adding those locked off shots and removing all elements of camera motion and just saving that from those parts where the full band is kicking in. We achieved that blue gradient up the wall by just taking 4 of those Astera Titan tubes and putting them against the wall, just right at the bottom where the floor is. There's no mount or anything, we're just putting them there. And then I'm tilting them so that they shine up against the wall. I don't want them shining towards camera or lighting up the back of anybody. I just want them on that wall. Right in the center there, I've got 3 lamps. Those are just from IKEA. They were super cheap, and I just wanted that kind of look to the lamps, so I just picked up the cheapest ones I could find. They've just got household bulbs in there, but they're all on a dimmer just so that I can get the right exposure and balance all the lights. It's really hard working with lights where you can't control the brightness and you have to set everything else to the brightness of those fixtures. So they're all just on dimmers to make my life a lot easier. If you don't have dimmers in your lighting kit, just stop the video and just go out and buy some. Nothing else that I say in this video is going to be as helpful to you as going out and buying dimmers for when you deal with practical lights that you can't dim. The same lamps are in the narrative location and they're in the performance location as well, and we do want to have some overlap there, both in the narrative side and the performance side, so it was just a nice way to link the two of them and make it a bit more grounded. Coming out of that first chorus, we add a new lighting setup here, which is just the Astera tubes, 6 of them in a circle, all the other white lights off, and having our musicians perform in the middle of that circle. This kind of setup works really nicely in a white room because even though all the lights are facing towards camera, which means the front of him should be pretty dark and hard to see in the shadows, it's got so much fill because it's bouncing around a white room that I don't need to supply any fill by turning those lights towards him. As a result, you get this much stronger blue light coming from the back, which you can see down the arm of the guitar player here. And you've got the 2 lights in front that can provide some really nice glow in the camera, some nice effects, and even a little bit of flaring at certain angles and intensity. Once we get halfway through the song where the guitar solo kicks in, we just wanted to change it up a little bit. So I've just brought those lamps in from the full band setup, and we're just animating those on and off to add a little bit of interest and some more movement to the lighting in this setup. We were able to automate that, even though they're just normal household lamps, just by getting a little lighting sort of DMX controller box. You can plug any light that you want into it, and then on a laptop, we can set up a bunch of MIDI programming, and that will just do all the animating for us. All you need is just that little box to kind of be the middleman to translate that MIDI messages into something that these household lights can actually use. You really don't need DMX compatible lights and a whole DMX system to get some animated movement with your lighting and even program your own stuff. You can just go rent one of those boxes, do a little bit of programming in Pro Tools or Ableton or whatever you've got, and you're good to go. There's one more full band setup. It's exactly the same. The only thing we're changing is that all of our daylight balance lights are off, so it's just the blue Asteras along the wall, everyone's silhouetted, and then we've got those lamps. Instead of keeping them on, we're using that same animation and having them flicker throughout. We just use this for some of the heavier parts of the songs, and it's a really easy way to change things up, just to have everyone in silhouette. I barely had to touch any lights. I just turned a few off and we have a whole new look. That lighting setup, again, mostly uses the Sigma 1835 on 35 for most of it. I think I might have used the Contact Size 50 for a take or two, but that's about it. The last set of performance takes are the double exposure shots, and the way we shot them, super simple. You're just wanting to light up the wall behind the performers and then keep them as dark as you can. After that, you're just taking a separate piece of footage, putting it on top, and then changing the blend mode to get the desired effect. I didn't want them to be completely silhouetted. I wanted to see a little bit of the fretboard, a little bit of the emotion on the faces and stuff like that. So even though I'm not lighting them directly, all of that shape and that detail is coming in just from the natural spill and bounce around that white room. They're not lit directly whatsoever, only that back wall's being lit. All of the water and ocean B-roll you're seeing is just stock footage. It just made more sense given the budget that we could just spend like 25 bucks to get access to a full library of stock footage than it would be for us to go out and spend a whole day shooting this B-roll ourselves. I don't really like using stock footage, but it's one of those things that when it makes such practical sense in a scenario like this, I don't mind giving up that little bit of pride to say, oh, I shot it myself. Like, am I gonna go out in a helicopter and shoot all this B-roll looking down into the ocean with an expensive camera? No. No, I am not. In some of these shots, you can actually see the double exposure isn't perfect. That is intentional. There's certain parts of the song that just get a little bit more intense. And because it was all about drowning and being overwhelmed in the sea of addiction, it kind of made sense to have those not such a clean line like you usually see in double exposure shots. Now and then it gets a little bit blurred, so even the white walls have a little bit of the ocean and the waves on them. That's one of those things that's to taste. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It just kind of worked for what I was doing, so I kept it. The location for the narrative is just a friend of the band's house, so we were able to save some money that way, and then we're just dressing it up the way that we needed to. Lighting here was super easy. It's a mix of natural light from that window, and we're augmenting it with the falconized light mat again. There's just a pillar outside, so all we did is just stick it there, tape it a bunch so that it was super secure, and that way I can adjust the amount of level that I want coming through that window. I tossed a sheer curtain on the window for a few reasons. First, it was just to cut down a little bit of light level, just to make it easier to match the inside to the outside. It also adds a little bit of nice softness around the window, a little bit of like glow and bloom. And lastly, it just makes seeing out of the window a little bit less distracting and keeps your focus on the talent. The lamp on the left was already there. The one on the right is the same one from the band setups. And then I just brought my own dimmable bulbs just to make sure I was getting the color I wanted. They weren't flickering, and I could control the levels a lot easier. There wasn't a lot of room for a slider, so all the camera movement you see in these setups is just the Ronin S, and I'm just tilting it towards him and away from him. Same thing goes for the shots that look like they're later in the evening. Nothing's changed there except for the color grade to make it look like it's later, but we'll get to that in a bit. When we go to those nighttime shots, everything is consistent. The only change we've made is the falconized light mat has been turned off, and then the two lamps I just adjusted to whatever level I needed to get the ratio that I wanted. For all the shots of him drinking, the close-up of the glass and everything, all the lighting is exactly the same. We haven't tweaked anything, and it's all shot on the Sigma 18-35 for the entire narrative. When our character wakes up, we wanted him to be in like a distorted version of his world, so we just changed the colors to kind of convey that. Outside, you can see that we've just put a blue gel on the falconized light mat, And then inside I have a falconized pocket light that I've just stuck inside the lamp instead of a bulb to give off that reddish hue. The only extra thing I'm doing to make it seem dreamy is I've just added a little bit of like a glow filter over top, and I've got a tutorial on that, so if you don't know how to do it, you can go ahead and check that out and I'll link it for you. The last shot in the narrative is this long shot that slowly zooms out of our character on the ground, and all I'm doing here is just a little lighting gag. I've got that same falconized pocket light. It's set to like an ambulance light setting, and we're just slowly panning that through the window to make it look like an ambulance is pulling up. The rest of the lighting is all the same. That lamp is on the left, and then we just knocked that other lamp over, just because for set deck purposes, it fit the narrative and it looked good. But I also liked what it was doing. It really helped highlight him when that lamp was on the ground. I didn't want so much of a top light. I wanted sort of a backlight, and you can see it around his hair. It really pops off more. It's a little bit more gritty, and it just had a better, more moody look. Before we talk the color grade, I just want to point out that I'm not using the stock S-Log2 picture profiles. I'm actually using Omenio primers, which are some paid modified picture profiles that come with a LUT pack as well. And using their picture profiles plus their conversion LUTs, I really like how it looks. It just looks a lot cleaner to my eye, and I'm a big fan of that. This is the image straight out of camera, and then I've got a conversion LUT on there, which I believe is their wide dynamic range conversion LUT. And then I'm adding some basic correction just to get the contrast where I like it. All I'm doing is bringing the shadows down a ton, bringing the blacks down a little bit, and then balancing that out by adding a bit more highlights. Now this image looks way better than just flat raw, but I'm not happy at all with the colors, because you can do as much as you want. Sony colors still need some tweaking and still need some extra love. So I have a second instance of Lumetri color, where all I'm doing is taking the blues, shifting them more towards baby blue and less of like a seafoam green. And then I'm taking all the skin tones and anything else that's sort of yellowish and shifting it more towards orange and red. So if I turn that on, everything just looks way cleaner and much more natural. The easiest way to get that sort of color palette that you like and tweak everything just the way you want it to is just by using the curves adjustments. So I've got hue versus hue here, and you can see I've pulled that blue closer towards an actual blue instead of a green. And then I'm taking the reds and just changing them a little bit. I've got a really broad adjustment for that whole range, and I'm just bringing everything a little bit warmer and less green. The only other thing I'm doing here is I'm taking the hue versus saturation curves, and I'm just boosting those two colors, the sort of orangey reds and the blues, just to make it pop and really stand out more and really solidify those as the strongest colors within that color palette. The narrative stuff is basically exactly the same. I've got just that one adjustment layer going across the entire project, and I'm doing most of my adjustments on there, just because I feel that helps solidify a look across the entire project if you can do as much as possible across every single clip, and then go in and tweak the little details you need to after the fact. So again, here it is flat, here it is with the correction LUT, and then I'm using all the same adjustments just to get the moody, contrasty look that I like. And once again, just to show you, here's what it looks like with my color tweaks, and then here it is before those color tweaks. It's very green and gross, and once it's corrected, it looks a lot more natural and a lot more warm. After the first chorus, you can see these shots that are taken later in the day, but actually they were taken at the same time, and all I've done is just put an instance of Lumetri color to make it look like it's later in the evening. All you need to do is bring the highlights down, and then I'm keeping the whites nice and high just to reflect more realistic light levels, especially with the lamp in the shot. And then I'm just adding some blue into the shadows like you would see in the evening time. Saves a lot of time and you don't have to wait around. I say that, but as you can see in these shots, we actually did wait around for nighttime. So color grade is exactly the same here. I haven't tweaked anything. The only difference is the light levels and maybe a little bit of contrast adjustments. The only other color grading required was just taking all of the stock footage from those double exposure shots and making sure it all matched, because it was different water from different places in the world. So some of it's like a dark, deep navy blue, some of it's more of a bright seafoam green. So I just took all those clips and shifted those blues around so that they all match each other. Other than that, it's just some contrast adjustments just to make it really pop. The very last thing that you see in the video is this shot that pans across the beach, and then we see this tower in the background, and that's the tower from their concept art that they wanted to tie in. And all I'm doing there is just having that graphic fade in. I've just masked it out and tried to find a way to make it look like it was kind of hidden in the clouds. This is what the graphic looked like when they gave it to me, and all I've done here is just adjust the color and contrast to make it look more like it's a part of the scene. And then I've just added a bit of an opacity mask at the bottom to make it look like it's coming out of the fog there. Then all I did is just add some copied layers of this same bit of B-roll over top in different places to make it look like it's a little bit more obscured and a little bit more cloudy. Having those extra couple layers of fog and cloud in front just helps give more realistic kind of spatial depth to it and helps sell that it's really a part of this scene. Well, I hope this information was helpful and helps you out on your next music video shoot. If you have any questions about this video production, just let me know. More than happy to help you out. If you did find this helpful, please like and subscribe so that I know you want to see more content like this, but otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.